Well, hello once again, and welcome to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. Today, in our journey through the New Testament, we are in the last chapter of the book of John. We are in John chapter 21. Now, Jesus, his crucifixion has happened. His resurrection has happened. Many have seen him. Yesterday, we saw Thomas, doubting Thomas, have his eyes laid upon the Christ. He touched Jesus' wounds, and we saw that the purpose of John's gospel is that we would believe in Jesus, that he is the Christ, the Son of God, and that we would have life in his name. Now, chapter 21 then serves, as some say, almost as an epilogue, as a kind of like the story after the story. And in this, we find Jesus' disciples, they're out fishing. Now, sometimes people say, oh, they've gone back to their old life, and that probably is not the case. They had to eat. This is likely they were just fishing so that they could sustain themselves. And so there's this interaction, Jesus calling to him from the shore, and then Peter realizes it's the Lord. It's Jesus, right? And so he jumps in, he swims back. The other disciples, I guess, are left to haul in the ship and the fish and all that. But what I want to look at today is this interaction between Jesus and Peter. Now, they have a meal together, and everyone's nervous to ask, is this really Jesus? And then Jesus ends up focusing in on Peter. Now, this is the Peter who he's messed up. He's gone, done, and messed up, right? You remember his failure? I mean, in the upper room, Peter promises Jesus that he will die. He will die for Jesus. And then shortly after there, 3 times, Peter denies Jesus. Jesus said this would happen. It happens. Peter is afraid. He cowers even before a young girl asking him, hey, aren't you with that Jesus guy? And the rooster crows, and Peter runs off weeping. He's shamed himself. He has talked a big game, but when the rubber met the road, he abandoned Christ. So you got to be wondering, if you're Peter, what's my place in this thing now? Jesus he's resurrected, and Peter certainly has got to be thrilled by that. But there's an elephant in the room. What does Jesus think about Peter, who has promised something large, overpromised and underdelivered? And this is what we find Jesus thinks of Peter. Let's turn to this text. It's his incredible exchange. John 21, 15 through 19. It says, when they had finished breakfast, Peter said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Now, who are the these? Is it the fish? Jesus is saying, do you love me more than these fish that you're catching? Do you love me more than being a fisherman? It's probably not it. He's probably surrounded by the other disciples. You remember, Peter's talked a big game in front of the other disciples. He says, do you love me more than these? And Peter, he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Now notice Peter isn't show bravado here. He's like, of course I love you more than these guys. I'm your right-hand man. Look at these schmucks. No. He says, yes, Lord, you know I love you. He doesn't use the comparative. You know I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my lambs. Jesus said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter, said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Now, many people notice in the Greek, there's one word for love used twice and one word for love used once. And there might be some significance to that, but John also likes to use a lot of synonyms in his writing. I think we got to be careful to maybe read too much into that at this point. But here's what he says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him a third time, Do you love me? Why is Peter grieved? Is he grieved because Jesus is questioning his love? Maybe. I think Peter's grieved because he's thinking about those 3 times he denied Christ, and these 3 times that mirror with Jesus asking him, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. Verse 19, this he said to show what kind of death he was to glorify God. By what kind of death he was to glorify God with. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Now, what do we have going on here? I think this is an incredible picture of the grace and the restoration we have in Christ, even as those who stumble on our face. Peter stumbled on his face. He overpromised and underdelivered. He talked a big game and then did not show up. He abandoned Christ. 3 times he denied Christ. And Peter's grieved. 3 times Christ asks Peter, do you love me? And 3 times Christ instructs Peter toward the role of shepherding. And this is likely done in front of all the other disciples. They're all listening in on this. I mean, here's what's happening. Jesus is demonstrating that Peter is still a disciple. He's still in the fold. He still has a purpose. He still has a ministry. He still has work to do. He's showing the other disciples that you don't have to neglect Peter. You don't have to leave him out. You don't have to ostracize him. You don't have to push him to the margins. No, Peter is still a key member of this team. He is still a disciple. He is one of us. He's one of us. Now, this doesn't mean that Peter's being restored to a place that is of higher authority than the rest. That's not what the point is here. There's no indication of that. What we're looking at here is Peter is one of them. He is restored. Well, let me ask you, have you stumbled in your faith? Have you messed up? Have you fallen? I know the answer. I know the answer, not because I can see into your soul. I know that you are a flawed person and you still have rebelliousness in you and you still sin. But listen, Jesus, he restores the sinner. He wants to bring you into the fold. He wants to continue to use you for his purpose and for his ministry. He asks you, do you love me? Do you love me? Not are you perfect? Not will you do everything right every day? Not are you going to score 100% on the morality life test? He says, do you love me? Let me ask you today. Do you love Jesus? Do you love him imperfectly? Do you stumble at times? Do you fail at times? See, today's ancient way for your modern day is a moment to be restored in your walk with Christ. It's a moment to remember that you're standing before God. It's not based on your obedience. It's not based on your good works. It's not based on your good attitude. It's not based on you never denying Christ, or you never messing up, or you never being cowardly, or you never being overly angry, or you never lusting. Your standing before God is based on the perfect life and the sacrificial death and the victorious resurrection of Christ. This means that you and I, we love out of the response of what Christ has done. And so when Jesus looks at you today and he says, do you love me? What are you going to answer? The answer is not, Jesus, I'm not good enough. Jesus, I've messed up too many times. Jesus, I've failed you. No. The answer is, Jesus, you know everything. You know my heart. You've changed my heart. You know I love you. And then it's to walk in the purposes he has for you. Today's such an encouraging message as we come to the end of John. It's to be reminded of the restoration that exists in the in the heart of Christ for you and I. It's to remember that we love him because he first loved us. I hope you, as this video comes to an end, you take some time and you answer that question. Jesus' question, do you love me? And you answer it by saying, yeah, I do. I love you, Lord.